Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Oh, yeah,
You probably know this one.
definitely.
It's a classic, maybe the classic military strategy text.
It's up there.
But whether you're a history buff or fascinated by strategy in general, or just curious, what makes this book so enduringly relevant?
Yeah,
This deep dive is for you.
absolutely.
I think it is surprisingly relevant, even
A
though
bit-
it was written in ancient China.
Yeah, way back.
Likely during a period of intense conflict between warring states,
Yeah.
the Wu and the Yu specifically.
Who in the U?
So, okay, so why is that context important? It's not just theory, right?
No, it's definitely not just theory.
Sun Tzu was writing from practical experience
He was.
in a time when warfare was brutal and constant.
It was a very different time.
This wasn't some intellectual exercise. It
Yeah.
was about survival,
Yeah.
outsmarting your opponent when the stakes were incredibly high.
The stakes don't get much higher.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
I think there's no better way to illustrate that point
Okay.
than with the story of Sun Tzu and the King of Wu's concubines.
Oh.
It's a pretty shocking story,
Oh.
even today.
It is.
So the king gives Sun Tzu command of his army,
Right.
but the concubines, well, they don't take him seriously at first.
No, they're concubines. They don't.
Giggles, confusion.
Yeah.
Not exactly a well-disciplined military
Not
unit.
quite a well-oiled machine.
Understatement.
Yeah.
And Sun Tzu, to really hammer home the point about discipline,
Right.
and the chain of command ends up beheading
Oh,
two
yeah.
of the king's favorites.
Yeah, he was serious.
What's fascinating here is what that tells us
Absolutely.
about Sun Tzu's approach. It wasn't just about obedience.
Right.
He understood that in a chaotic world, a general's unwavering authority
Yeah.
could mean the difference between life and death
Right.
for everyone under his command.
That's right.
It's a harsh lesson for sure.
Yeah, very hard.
But this idea of discipline is really just the starting point for Sun Tzu.
Okay.
He then goes on to emphasize something that might surprise you.
Oh, really? What's that?
Deception.
Deception.
Right, there's that famous line.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
All warfare is based on deception.
Hmm.
It sounds almost Machiavellian,
It does a little bit.
but Sun Tzu really believed that outsmarting your opponent
Yeah.
was just as important as outfighting them.
Interesting.
And he gives all sorts of examples in the text.
Stars? He does?
Exactly. Attacking where the enemy is unprepared,
Yeah.
appearing where you're not expected. It's all about keeping your enemy off balance,
Right.
confused and vulnerable,
You got it.
like a psychological game almost.
Exactly. It is very psychological.
It's about controlling the information your opponent has, and therefore controlling how they react.
Yeah, you take away their agency.
Speaking of controlling the narrative,
Okay.
I've been watching this YouTube channel lately
Oh, really?
called Affirmified Journey. Affirmified Journey.
They have a lot of great motivational content.
Oh, cool.
Really helps you build a winning mindset.
Yeah.
It reminded me of some of Sun Tzu's teachings.
Interesting. How so?
Well, Sun Tzu talks a lot about being strategic,
Mhm.
decisive, having the courage to achieve your goals,
Yeah,
which is exactly what Affirmified Journey is all about.
I can see the connection.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding the mental game,
That's it.
whether it's on a battlefield or in your own life.
Okay, back to the art of war.
Okay.
So we've got discipline, we've got deception. What else should we know about Sun Tzu's approach to strategy?
Well, this might surprise you, but Sun Tzu doesn't actually glorify war.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Everything we've talked about so far, discipline, deception, spies, it all seems pretty focused on winning.
Well, it is, but he also emphasizes that the ultimate goal of war is peace. Okay? I'm not sure I follow that.
Well, think about it. If a war drags on, it weakens both sides. Even the victor Sun Tzu argues that a skilled general should aim to achieve their objectives as quickly and efficiently as possible, minimizing bloodshed.
So it's about choosing your battles carefully and then ending them decisively.
Exactly. He even says that the greatest victory is the one won without fighting at all.
So how do you do that? How do you win without actually fighting?
That's where the really interesting stuff comes in. Sun Tzu talks about using diplomacy, strategic alliances, even just the threat of force to get your opponent to back down. It's about understanding their weaknesses, their fears, and using that knowledge to achieve your goals without a bloody conflict.
So it's like a mind game almost.
Exactly. And that's where the human element comes in. Sun Tzu devotes a lot of the art of war to understanding the psychology of both your own troops and the enemy's.
Okay, we touched on that a bit with the concubine story and how Sun Tzu emphasized discipline, but is there more to it than that?
Oh, there's a lot more. He talks about morale, about keeping your soldiers motivated and focused. He also stresses the need to understand the enemy's fears, their motivations, by exploiting their weaknesses and playing on their anxieties. You can gain a huge psychological advantage.
So it's not just about battlefield tactics, it's about understanding the people involved,
Uh-huh.
almost like managing their emotions.
Exactly. And that's why the art of war is still so relevant today. It's not just a dusty military manual, it's a deep dive into human nature, the dynamics of power, and how those things play out in any kind of conflict.
I see what you mean. So how does this all apply outside of actual warfare?
Well, let's take the business world, for example. Think of companies competing in the market. It's not literal warfare, but there are definitely winners and losers, strategies and tactics involved.
So in this case, know your enemy becomes know your competitors.
Precisely. You need to understand their strengths and weaknesses, what they're offering, how they're marketing themselves. Just like in war, you have to be able to adapt to a constantly changing landscape, and you have to be able to outmaneuver your opponents.
And what about deception? Is there a place for that in the business world?
Well, I'm not suggesting anyone go around lying to their customers, but there is definitely a strategic element to how you present information. Think about a new product launch. You don't want to reveal everything right away. You build anticipation, maybe a little mystery, then hit the market with a bang.
So it's more about creating buzz, a sense of excitement.
Exactly, and that's something Sun Tzu understood very well. He knew that perception is often reality, and that controlling the narrative can be a powerful tool.
That's fascinating. It really shows how the art of war, even though it's about military strategy, has these timeless principles that can be applied in so many different ways.
It really does, and if you're looking for resources to help you apply these principles in your own life, I'd recommend checking out lingopediamagazine.com.
I've heard of them. What kind of stuff do they offer?
They have a great selection of courses and ebooks on a whole range of topics, including business strategy, personal development, even ancient philosophy.
So they could help you delve deeper into some of these concepts we're discussing.
Exactly. They go beyond the basics, really help you develop your strategic thinking, negotiation skills, leadership abilities, a great complement to our deep dive here.
That sounds like a valuable resource. I'll definitely check it out. So back to Sun Tzu. What are some of the most important takeaways from the art of war that our listeners can apply in their own lives, regardless of their field?
One of the big ones is knowing yourself. Sun Tzu stresses understanding your own strengths and weaknesses before you even start assessing your opponent.
That makes sense. If you don't know your own limitations, how can you develop a good strategy?
Exactly. And once you have a handle on that, you can start analyzing your opponent. Sun Tzu provides a really useful framework for doing that. Assess their strengths and weaknesses, their motivations, their fears.
So it's about gathering intelligence, doing your research.
Absolutely. And then once you have a clear picture of both yourself and your opponent, you can start developing your strategy. Sun Tzu emphasizes planning, thinking, several steps ahead, anticipating what your opponent might do next.
So it's like chess,
Yeah,
right? You have to think about the consequences of each move.
precisely. And just like in chess, you have different pieces at your disposal, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. You have to use them strategically, coordinate their movements, maximize their impact.
And you have to stay calm under pressure,
Mhm.
think clearly, don't let your emotions get in the way.
Exactly. Sun Tzu believed that self-control and discipline were essential for good leadership and for making sound decisions.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm starting to see how the art of war is about so much more than just winning battles. It's about thinking strategically, understanding human nature, and approaching any kind of challenge with a clear head and a well-thought-out plan.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, even though we're talking about conflict, Sun Tzu believed that the ultimate goal was always to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. He was a pragmatist focused on achieving victory with minimal losses.
Which, when you think about it, is a pretty good philosophy for life in general.
It is, and that's why the art of war continues to resonate with people centuries after it was written.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's still so much to unpack in this book.
There is. We'll be back for part 3 as our deep dive, where we'll explore even more of Sun Tzu's insights.
Until then, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful. Welcome back to our deep dive into the art of war.
Yeah, glad to be back.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from deception and spies
Mm-hmm.
to the psychology of conflict,
Yeah.
and how these principles can be applied in modern life.
This fascinating stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up,
Okay.
there are a few more points I'd like to touch on.
Let's hear him.
One that really struck me was Sun Tzu's emphasis on avoiding prolonged conflicts.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
That's a key insight.
It is.
He saw those drawn-out wars
Yeah.
as ultimately destructive for everyone involved,
Right.
even the side that technically wins in the end.
It's a Pyrrhic victory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He makes the point that a skilled general
Mm-hmm.
should be aiming for a quick, decisive victory with as little bloodshed as possible.
You got it.
It's not about glorifying violence
Right.
or racking up a high body count.
Right. It's not a video game.
It's about achieving your objectives in the most efficient way
Mm-hmm.
while preserving your own strength and resources for the future.
Exactly.
So it's not just about winning individual battles.
Right.
It's about winning the war.
Yeah, that's the big picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And winning the war
Mm-hmm.
might mean achieving a lasting peace,
It might.
securing a favorable trade agreement,
Look at this.
or simply deterring your opponent
Mm-hmm.
from taking hostile action in the first place.
Yeah. You win by not fighting.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And that idea of choosing your battles wisely
Mm-hmm.
is something we can all apply in our own lives.
I think so too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about all the demands we have on our time and energy these days.
Oh, I know it.
Information overload,
Mm-hmm.
competing priorities,
For sure.
constant distractions.
Oof, it's exhausting.
It's more important than ever
I agree.
to be able to focus on what truly matters
Yes.
and avoid getting bogged down in unnecessary conflicts.
Pick and choose.
Like that old saying,
What's that?
don't sweat the small stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being intentional with your energy,
Right.
making conscious choices
Yeah.
about where you invest your time and effort.
You only have so much.
And sometimes the most strategic move
Okay.
is to simply walk away
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best thing.
from a conflict that's not worth your energy.
Got it.
So taking a step back
Okay.
from all the specific tactics and principles we've discussed,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say is the core message of The Art of War?
That's a good question. I think at its heart, it's about strategy.
Okay.
It's about understanding the dynamics of power, whether that power is on a battlefield,
Okay.
in a boardroom,
Mm-hmm.
or even in a personal relationship.
Right.
And it's about using that understanding
Okay.
to navigate complex situations in a way. Mm-hmm.
That maximizes your chances of success, however you define that success.
So it's about being smart, not just strong, right?
Exactly.
Sun Tzu emphasizes that true strength lies in wisdom,
Mhm.
in planning,
Yeah.
and in adapting to ever-changing circumstances.
He was way ahead of his time.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into The Art of War,
Okay.
what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
Well, I hope they realize that the insights in this book,
Mm-hmm.
even though they were written for military leaders centuries ago,
Yeah,
are still incredibly relevant today.
I agree.
Whether you're a CEO, an entrepreneur, an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
or just someone trying to navigate the challenges of everyday life.
Yeah.
The principles of strategy planning and self-awareness
Mhm.
can make a huge difference in how you approach those challenges.
It's a book that can really change how you think about the world
It can.
and how you approach your own goals.
Absolutely.
And if you're looking for additional resources to help you apply these principles, yeah,
I'd recommend checking out lingopediamagazine.com.
good resource.
Yes, we mentioned them earlier.
We did.
Great website for anyone who wants to delve deeper
Yeah.
into strategic thinking,
Mm-hmm.
leadership skills,
Right.
and personal development.
They have a lot to offer.
So to all our listeners out there,
Okay, everybody.
if you want to gain an edge in any area of your life,
Yeah.
pick up a copy of The Art of War.
Mm-hmm.
Spend some time with it
Read it carefully.
and see how its wisdom can apply to your own unique situation.
Good advice.
You might be surprised at how much you can learn
You will.
from a book written centuries ago.
It's true.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the mind of Sun Tzu.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
We hope you found it insightful and engaging.
We had a great time.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel
Yes, please subscribe.
for more deep dives into fascinating topics.
We'll be back.
And please share this episode with anyone you think might find it valuable.
Spread the word.
Until next time, stay curious
Stay curious.
and keep learning.
We'll see you next time.